Welcome back to another Smell Sword Farts. And in this video that's going to do terrible in the algorithm, I'm going to alienate my entire core audience by talking about how they're wrong. Today we're talking about the concept of negative content. And I'm not talking about negative content where you're hating on somebody. I'm talking about content that has a negative lean on a topic, saying that something is wrong, even if you're not calling your audience dumb or starting drama. So I'm going to do this set, and then I'm going to tell you what I mean. I'm not going to show you me doing it because it's going to be boring. Maybe I'll just cut it out. Okay, so there's three main types of content when it comes to like what I'm talking about today. There's neutral content, which is content that doesn't really say something one way or the other. It is something exists and you should like be aware of it. For instance, you could say like, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? I don't know if that's even true because I'm bad at dates. But you're just saying a thing happened. Now, that specific example actually is like controversial and whatnot. But the point being like saying a thing exists or a thing happens is pretty neutral when it comes to content. It's just informing your audience of a thing. If you don't put a positive or negative spin on it, if you don't try and say it's right or wrong, you just say it happened, mostly people are going to be chill about it. And it's easy to consume because they're just learning a new thing. They are being told about the existence of something. Of course, there's going to be people who debate you in the comment section or say that you're wrong or whatever, especially if you actually get it wrong. Next, we've got positive content. That is when you make something and you say, this thing is good or cool or works. This, in my niche, generally revolves around saying that a thing from pop culture or a thing from fantasy or a thing from some IP, right? Because that's generally where weapons and martial arts are relegated to. They're relegated to pop culture, saying that, hey, this thing that's in your favorite fantasy thing actually works in real life. We have examples of it and or etc. This is actually pretty rare that this is a completely true statement because realistically, that's not how it goes. Most fantasy stuff is fake. Don't do what I do when it comes to working out. Be safe. I'm going to have to fast forward through this again. It's going to take me a minute. But there are ways to still do this. So when I make a video about how something is cool or good or works in fantasy, generally I'm cherry picking. I'm saying, hey, well, overall, this representation of fantasy isn't realistic, whoop, I can still find elements of realism in it. For instance, recently we were doing a video about some anime that Clark watches where the character in his description does, they trick their opponent by doing things like fainting with their body and then doing something else. And this is a real tactic in fencing. Like, if I'm here, I can do tactics where normally what I want to do is have as little movement as I can, right? I move my arm first and then I go. But if I need to trick my opponent, I might exaggerate a movement in one line and then come somewhere else. This is a body feint. And so this character, in the description of her fighting style, does this kind of thing. I don't even remember the example. I think it was Jobless Reincarnated, I think is what it was. I don't even remember who it is. But they do this thing, and so we made a video about that and how it's realistic. And then the joke is that it's not shown that way on screen at all. But a lot of content creators will do this because it's one of the more popular forms of content out there. It's very accessible, it's very easy to watch, it's very consumable because it's reinforcing something that you like. No one likes to hear that their favorite things are bad or wrong. We all want the things that we like to be good, right? The way we describe good is the problem here because something can be good and be totally unrealistic, right? I love Star Wars. I even like the fight choreography in the prequels. And it's totally unrealistic. None of that would work for real. Even with the Force, it's bad. Bad in the sense of martial arts. Great in the sense of a visual picture on screen, right? I can differentiate those two things. And that doesn't make me special. It just means that I'm so deep in the lore of Star Wars, the realities of martial arts, and the art of fight choreography that I understand what they're doing. I understand what they're trying to do. And I don't have to say that this is realistic for me to like it. I can say, no, it's totally unrealistic, and I still love it. Maybe even in spite of that or because of that. But a lot of people don't have that perspective when it comes to fantasy because they've not done any of the things that these fantasy IPs are actually built off of, such as like fencing or archery or any of these martial arts, or they don't know about like the physics of swords and things like that. So when they see something like reverse grip or a double-bladed sword, they're like, oh yeah, I can in my head logic how this thing would actually be good. And when a creator comes along and says that, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. My thing is realistic. But it's not. Next set. Okay, I'm getting a little bit rambly. Let's get back on track. So we've got positive content. Positive content is when you glaze something with a bit of a stretch or without. Then you've got negative content. And this is the most difficult to consume easily, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is the worst in terms of views, because negativity does produce a big emotional reaction, which is good for views and view retention, right? How many drama channels, how many like negative like political channels, negative in the sense that like they are criticizing, not that they are bad. Negative does not mean bad in this sense. It means that they are being critical. Maybe that's a better word. Critical, yeah, okay, we're gonna reframe this whole discussion because I thought of better words. Critical, neutral, and pro. Nah, screw it, I'll say negative. But the point being, like, I make a lot of negative content. That doesn't mean my content is mean or bad. It means that I say this thing is wrong because I am, expert's a hard word, right? I don't like the word expert. I am knowledgeable about a topic, more so than the layman, on said topic, so I can look at it and say, hey, that's not how swords work. I can do that in a positive, negative way. This is where it gets really confusing, right? So, positive content, that thing in the anime you like is right. Negative content that still is framed positively. This is the hard one, right? Swords, fantasy is wrong. Swords aren't heavy. That's an easy consumable, right? Because I'm not saying your favorite fantasy thing is wrong. I'm saying something that fantasy does that makes a thing you like look less cool, right? It's not cool when the swords are big and heavy and slow. No one likes that. It's not as cool as when they're fast and cool. So when I say, hey, swords aren't actually heavy and slow, that's a universal positive win. Everybody's on board. Everybody's like, yes, that is negative content. I'm saying that that thing is wrong, but I'm saying it in a way that people like. But that's not always the case. I can't always do that. A lot of people like things that are wrong. They like reverse grip. They like double-bladed swords. They like fantasy anime moves. They like doing flips in combat. And the thing is, I like those too. I like them in a fantasy setting, but they are wrong in a true martial arts setting. And the problem is a lot of people can't separate those two things. I am sure there are many things in my life that I hold this way too that I'm not even aware of. There are probably things out there that I think are cool or neat or whatever in some, maybe it's history, maybe it's, I don't know, art. Maybe there is a topic that I am not even aware of, that I have deeply held beliefs on that are absolutely wrong. And if somebody came out and said something, my first natural reaction as a human is to push back, to be upset. That's how we are wired. We are wired to be defensive if somebody says the thing you like is wrong. And I understand that. But we have to try and find, if we want to learn new things, we have to try and find ways to get over that. Unfortunately, social media is not geared towards making people think new things, especially in the current climate. And that's not like necessarily a political statement, but it also is, because many of the things going on right now are inherently political and divisive, and there's a word I'm trying to think of, partisan? You get what I'm saying, us versus them. We like to categorize things, and we like to have a side to be on, and we don't like the other side of things. So it makes sense, or like tribalism kicks in, and that extends to weird things, like reverse grip, because your favorite fantasy character does it. Starkiller does it, and Starkiller is cool. Ahsoka does it. Ahsoka's cool. I like Ahsoka. I identify with many of the things of Ahsoka, and you saying that Ahsoka's fighting style is bad, that makes me feel like I'm bad. because I like Ahsoka, right? Hold on. Here we go. Don't do what I do. Unless it's a video where I'm telling you what to do, then do what I do, because I'm always right. So negative content tends to be divisive. And if you're going for being divisive, that's fine. But your channel will develop not necessarily a negative reputation, but like an edgy one. So I've been in, I think, 2 or 3 controversies, and most of them have been about this kind of content. It's been me saying something about fantasy or pop culture doesn't work, and somebody getting very upset about that and saying that I'm wrong or bad or mean or attacking somebody. I don't care if you think that a thing is cool. I don't even care if you think it's realistic. I don't care, but I'm going to tell you my thoughts on that thing. And I think that that has made some people think that I'm a negative, mean person, or that I hate fantasy. Because, I mean, yeah, I make a lot of videos about that. I make a ton of videos about how reverse script doesn't work, or your favorite fantasy thing doesn't work. But that doesn't come from a place of me, like, hating fantasy. I love fantasy. But I also I love the true art of swordsmanship, the practice of this. And I think more people should be into it. More people should understand it. Because I don't think that we have to have an either or. I don't want to see all of the fantastic fantasy stuff go away. But it is the default now. It's all we get. We don't get any realistic combat in any big budget thing. It's all small budget stuff because there's no appetite for it, because there's no knowledge for it, because we're okay with the other thing. And I don't think that's what we should do. And it hasn't always been that way either. There was a time where these really cool, amazing sword fighting scenes that had more realism in them were very popular. Errol Flynn, I mean, yeah, it's its own kind of not realistic, but everybody involved had fencing training, right? Like Basil Rathbone was an amazing fencer, and he and Tyrone Powers, the Mark of Zorro fight they do, is it 100% realistic? No, but it is a show of skill and choreography that I don't think that we've seen on screen for a really long time since. And I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see an appetite for that. So I make my videos about how your favorite fantasy thing is wrong. And that'll ruffle people the wrong way, and they'll think bad things about me. And I don't know what the point of this video is, other than to say there's a lot more nuance that goes into the videos that I make about these things that doesn't fit into that 60 seconds. But I like fantasy, but I like real swordsmanship more. And there's enough people out there who are glazing fantasy. There's not enough people out there who know what they're talking about to an extent. I mean, I got stuff to learn. I'm not all-knowing on this stuff. But who know what they're talking about, who have a platform, and are saying, hey, that's not really the real story. So negative content's important. And negative doesn't mean bad. And just because I say your favorite thing doesn't work doesn't mean I think that you're dumb. I don't think that your favorite character is dumb. And I don't think that your favorite character should stop doing that thing, or that thing should go away from fantasy. I just want people to understand that it's not how the real thing works, and the real thing is cool too. So this has been a small sword fart where I've probably alienated most of my audience by talking about how I hate their favorite thing. That's what you'll probably take away from this. And join me on the next one. Smell my small sword farts. Okay, bye.